If you don't have your calc, just sit and watch. So first thing you need to know, obviously, is where the on button is, which isn't the most important. The most important out of that is the off button. Because what's going to happen is you're going to leave your calculator on and put the cover on. But the problem with that is the batteries stay on for about 10 minutes after you've put the cover on. And what happens every single day if you're wasting 10 minutes of your battery power? Your batteries are going to last about half as long. So the first thing you want to do is get in the habit of turning your calculator off before you put the cover on. Because again, you'll save about double your battery life or save about half your battery life. When you take the batteries out, when you need to change them, first off, the calculator is pretty good at telling you there's going to come a day when you're going to turn it on. There's going to come a day you're going to turn your calculator on, and right across the screen it will say your batteries are low, you should change them. With typical use, that still gives you about a week before the batteries will actually die, so it's pretty good giving you a warning when the batteries are going to die. I sell batteries for $2, no tax, so you just bring me $2, I give you batteries. When you change your batteries, the big thing with the calculator is if you have data stored in the calculator. Hello? Can I help you?
Spare time and if I'm allowed to show.
No, library, cafeteria, please. Library or the cafeteria, please.
Jeez, I can't even show it once. I'm bored, okay? Nothing to do but this shitty work at school. Sorry for saying my swear word, okay?
Thanks.
I'm just, because...
Thanks for letting us know. It was so bizarre. I'm just going to close the door. That was a little weird. Just wanted to chill in math class. No one's ever asked to come and just chill in math class. Kind of enjoy that, actually. What was I talking about? Batteries? Right. So, if you store stuff in your calculator, like you have equations stored when we get to the graphing part, or you are taking applied and you have some data stored, or you are playing games, which is allowed on your calculator, and you have those stored. If you take all the batteries out, which is the way we typically do it, so you take 4 out and then you put 4 new ones in, a lot of the stuff you have stored will be gone. So the way you want to change the batteries in the calculator is you want to take 1 battery out, put 1 new battery in. Take 1 out, put 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, because that gives you enough power that it's just going to store stuff while you're taking the batteries out. Let's talk about how to lighten the screen, because that's something that sometimes you need to do that's not obvious unless somebody shows you. Thank you. So whether you have an 83 or you have the silver edition or you have an 84, you should still have these 4 arrows. They just may be a different color. What do you see in the middle of the 4 arrows? A circle that should be half colored in, so no matter what color your arrows are, you should see the exact same thing. So turn your calculator on, and I want you to press the second function button. And if you look at the screen, you can already know just by looking at the cursor whether you've hit the second function button, what happens when you hit it. It goes to an up arrow. And what I want you to do is hold down the up arrow. What did you notice? It got really, really dark. And I'm going to hit second function again, and I'm going to hold the down arrow. And what do you notice? It got really, really light. That's how to change the contrast. Typically, we have it around a 6, but it really depends what kind of light you're working in and what kind of things you're doing. Sometimes graphing, you need lighter. Sometimes calculations, you need darker. But sometimes when you change the batteries and you turn it on, it'll be really, really dark because there's something with the battery changes to change the contrast. So if it's ever too light or too dark, it's second function, and the up and down arrow will change your contrast. I'm going to show you the #1 thing that I love about the graphing calculator, besides the fact you just type what you see. So do this equation with me. Let's do 15 times 3 plus 6. I just totally made that up out of my head. So 15 times 3 plus 6. Hit enter. Everyone should get 51. And let's say I look at the next question, I'm like, oh, well, it's the exact same calculation, except times 3, it's times 4. So on a normal scientific calculator, you typically have to type all that back in. What you can do on a graphing calculator is recall the last 25 things you typed in. So if you did a question 3 questions before that's the exact same, but you just need to change 1 number, you can bring it back up onto the screen. Watch me do it first, then you can play around on yours, but if you're trying to do both, you're going to miss what I'm doing. Okay. So down where it says enter in second function, you should see the word entry. Entry means the last thing you typed in. So what I'm going to do is second function entry, and it's going to recall what I just typed in. I can keep going so you can see the last 25 things that I calculated on my calculator. So again, if you're doing a question and 5 questions later it's the exact same work, you don't have to type everything back in again. So let's recall the thing that we just did, which I don't think I can do now because I've already scrolled through it. You should be able to do it once. You should recall that. You can use your arrows to type on top of any number and just change it. So if we change this to a 4, hit enter, bam, calculator does all the work for us. And so let's say the next question, you're like, ooh, it's not +6, it's +10. Second function entry. Scroll back to what you don't want, change it, hit enter. That's one of my favorite features because that's going to save you in typing in all these long equations, especially with trig functions, where maybe you just need to change one of the numbers. Questions so far? Here's the other thing I like. Let's say we need to do a calculation, 15 times 29, making it up out of my head. So that was, say, part A of a question. And then part B, you have to take that answer and times by 2. Well, I don't want to have to type in 435 again because it's already on my screen. So I can just hit times 2. And what did the calculator put there at the beginning? And what that is telling the calculator is take the thing that's directly above, so the answer for my last question, and times it by 2. And let's say I need to take that answer and divide by 7. So I can just hit divide by 7, and the calculator understands we're taking the last answer, dividing by 7. Bam. Let's say we have to square that. Again, I don't want to have to type all of that in, especially with all those decimals. So how do I square something? I'm just going to hit my squared button. Calculator understands it wants me to take the answer and square it. Well, let's say I wanted to take the answer and then times it by 2 and then add 6 times the answer, just totally making it out of my head. So I can times by 2, which is no big deal, but let's say I wanted to add the answer back on. Well, I need to somehow tell the calculator that. So if you look down to the negative button, which is at the very bottom, the second function you see ANS, which is exactly what the calculator just put on the screen. So you can use second function subtraction to put that ANS anywhere in an equation. And what you're telling the calculator is take the answer from above, do whatever I just told you to do. Bam, calculator does all the work. So ANS is really handy, and the entry that we looked at before is really, really handy. I'm trying to think of anything right now else you need. We'll get into the graphing part in Unit 4, so I'll show you how to use all these keys up here, which are actually the graphing functions. If you played around with them, you'll see the calculator can do some really, really cool stuff. A couple words of caution is calculators can get viruses just like computers and laptops and other devices can. If you're copying a game from a friend and you don't know where they got it, don't put it on your calculator. If you want to play games, great. Go to the TI website, use the link cable that came with your calculator and download them right from the TI website. Those are safe. If you get it from a friend and you don't know where he or she got it and you don't know where they got it, et cetera, you could end up getting a virus. The most typical virus, what happens is you turn your calculator on, it turns itself off. You turn it on again, it turns itself off. You're in the middle of doing an equation, it turns itself off. That's not low battery, because the calculator will warn you when it's low battery. That probably means that you have a virus. If you can bring it to me fairly early and I can get it off your computer, like wiping your memory, you can save your calculator. If you ignore that, there is nothing I can do for you. And mom and dad are not going to be happy if you suddenly have to replace a $100 calculator because you were playing Tetris and you don't know where it came from. Okay, so again, just be aware if your calculator is doing really weird things, come and tell me, because we have ways to wipe the memory and to get it back to the factory defaults. Again, if you are low battery, it's pretty good at telling you. You turn it on, it'll say, hey, your batteries are low. If it's just turning itself off, something is wrong. Get in the habit, too, of replacing the cover, because these screens crack just like cell phone screens, especially if you throw it in your bag and then you're kicking your bag around, dropping it on the floor, doing all these things. So the cover's there for a reason, and it does protect your screen. That's all I'm going to tell you today, and we'll go on in Unit 4, and then we'll use it again in Unit 6 to do the graphing stuff.